you're saying you didn't do anything inappropriate with your stepdaughter.
I don't believe I did, sir. I don't think I did anything inappropriate.
Well,
Ms. Renata, I believe we're ready to open up at Rayburn.
Good morning, everybody. We'll call the Committee on Parole to order. Today is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Time is 8:35 a.m. In accordance with Governor Agaward's proclamation relative to COVID-19, today we're having our parole hearings by Zoom technology to provide for attendance by members of the public. A certification of our inability to operate as we normally do is posted on the board's webpage. Our first hearing this morning is at Rayburn Correctional Center. I'd like to first ask the staff at DOC headquarters, the parole board staff at DOC headquarters, to introduce yourself for the record, please.
Teresa John.
Ray Eaglin.
Leah Roten.
John Pocher.
All right, and would staff at Rayburn please introduce yourself for the record?
Justin Bickham, Warden.
Brittany Morgan, classification. Carrying effort records.
All right, and my name is Cheryl Renatz. I'm serving as chair of today's parole panel. My colleagues on the panel this morning are Mr. Tony Marabella and Mr. Victor Jones. I'd like to ask our staff to please introduce our first case.
This is the case for Anthony Gray, DOC 569210. We have Rebecca Parker, who's a victim who would like to speak. Nathaniel Gray, who's a son who would like to speak in support. Sonia Cardia Porter, who is the 19th ADA. Mickey Dawson, who's a niece. And Gabrielle Gray, who's a daughter.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Let me just explain the process. I'll read some identifying information into the record, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella because Mr. Gray's case was assigned to him. We'll do a parole interview with Mr. Gray. We'll hear from the warden, and then we'll hear from those of you who have joined us who've indicated they'd like to speak, and Mr. Gray will be allowed to make a statement before we reach a parole decision. So, Mr. Gray, good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, would you introduce yourself to us? Tell us your full name and your DOC number.
Anthony James Gray, 569210.
All right, Mr. Gray, you're classified as a first felony offender. You were sentenced on August 10th, 2010 for an aggravated incest, and you received a 15-year DOC sentence. Your parole eligibility date was October 25th, 2014. You don't earn good time, and so your full term date is October 27, 2024. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Would you answer Mr. Marabella's questions?
good morning, Mr. Gray. My name is Tony Marabella. How are you?
I'm all right, sir. Thank you.
I've got a few questions I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind answering me, please. You've been in prison, is it 10 years? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. About 11 years.
Almost 11? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And how old are you?
I'm 49.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your work history, both in prison and out of prison. What kind of work did you do before you came to prison?
Prior to coming to prison, sir, I was a truck driver. I worked at concrete trucking companies, and prior to coming to Louisiana, I worked as a truck driver at Public Works in Baytown, Texas.
Okay. And what kind of work have you done since you've been inside?
I've worked for the chaplains. I was a chaplain clerk for a couple of years, and I assisted the chaplain in a lot of programs, Celebrate Recovery programs at LaSalle Correctional Center and also at Catahoula Correctional Center.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about some of the programs that you have done while you've been there.
Yes,
Did you
sir.
do Celebrate Recovery? I mean, obviously, if you assisted with the programs, I assume you took Celebrate Recovery.
Yes, sir. I did. I've taken it several times. I took it, and it has done some remarkable things for my person. I've learned a lot from that program. And
Tell me a little bit about what you've learned.
about taking accountability and responsibility for things in your life that you've done and trying to make amends to some of the things that you've done in your life. And it's very vital to have a support group, and it's very vital to have individuals that understand you, that sympathize with you, that you can reach out to before you make any errors in your life.
Okay. Along those lines, did you have any kind of a drug or alcohol problem?
No, sir, I did not.
Have you ever used drugs?
No, sir, I didn't. I have not.
Never smoked marijuana? Never dabbled or anything?
No, sir. The reason being, my dad, he was addicted to drugs, and my aunt, she was addicted to drugs, and that steered me away from doing any type of narcotics.
Okay. How about alcohol? Did you drink?
On occasions, I've drank.
Ooh, that was scary. I'm not sure if you guys caught it, but the way he flipped within a millisecond was frightening.
And my mother's family is Catholic, and that's how we celebrate. We have a few drinks around the holidays and different festivals.
Okay.
But I have drank for casual purposes.
All right. You talked about Celebrate Recovery. You talked about accountability. You talk about taking responsibility for your actions. You were convicted by a jury of the charge of aggravated incest. I wasn't there, but I know Judge Anderson. I know he's a fair judge. Apparently, the jury heard all of the evidence. They believed the witnesses, and they convicted you. Yet you still contend you didn't do any of these things. Is that still your position today?
I don't believe that I've done anything wrong, but
Well, you know what you were charged with. You were charged
Yes, sir.
with aggravated incest.
Yes, he was. Let's take a look. Now, again, the details on this case are a little bit cumbersome, but of course, I will leave the link to the case in the description box for you to review. So they went to trial, and he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years when the DA was asking for a maximum of 20. He submitted his case to the Court of Appeals, saying that the punishment was excessive, but the Court of Appeals had affirmed the conviction and sentencing of the district court. So now we're sitting here witnessing him trying to get an early release without any remorse, any accountability, and the lack of interest of self-rehabilitation. And I just want to applaud this beautiful young lady for standing up, showing up, and taking her life back. In my opinion, 15 years is just not enough. After reading the details of the case, I just cannot believe how callous he is just by sitting here and asking for an early release. He's just thinking of himself. But let's see what the board thinks. Let's see if the board would alleviate some of her pain.
Now, under any
Yes, sir.
circumstances, inappropriately touching that young woman is a crime. Now, did you do it or didn't you?
No, sir.
So your position is, I didn't do it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell me what sort of sex offender programs or sex offender treatment you've had while you've been in prison.
When I was at the satellite camp, they didn't have the program. I asked for the program to be shipped somewhere with the program. And eventually, because all of the satellite camps were turning, into federal facilities, they eventually shipped me to Hunts last year. And in Hunts, that's whenever they enrolled me in the program and they sent me here. When I got here, I asked again if I could get put in the program. At that time, I did not know that I had any eligibility for parole. I was under the impression that I had to do flat time.
All right. Well, let me stop you. Are you telling me that since you figured it wasn't going to help you to take the classes to get out early, you weren't interested in taking them?
No, sir. I was interested in taking it prior to learning about it assisting me. I didn't know that I was even eligible. I was taking it because I thought that was something that a sex offender would have to take regardless, whether they got out on parole or got out in any type of situation.
You were correct in your thinking that a person who is convicted of a sex offense has to take sex offender treatment before they're released. Now,
Yes.
from what I'm hearing, you haven't had any yet.
I was in the class and the coronavirus shut us down. I'd finished the book, but I wasn't able to turn it in, and I was able to finish the program because of the COVID.
Well, tell me what you learned in the sex offender program.
I learned it was 27. There's 27 different situations. I don't really recall the precise.
What have you learned as it relates to you, Mr. Gray? What did you learn? How did you better yourself by taking these courses?
I've learned that I cannot do things like going to certain establishments that would promote any type of activity like sex stuff, like going to strip clubs and stuff like that, or looking at movies and things like that. I learned that that's not something that you
Did you do those things before?
Yes, sir. I have done those things before.
Is that something that may have had to do with why you're charged with these crimes?
Maybe, yes, sir.
What about your disciplinary record? You've got a pretty good disciplinary record. I don't show any write-ups. How many write-ups have you had?
I hadn't had any write-ups. I had one, but it didn't go anywhere. They wrote it up, but they didn't go any further with it. We had a disagreement about a religious stance. I had said something in one of my sermons I preached, and they didn't agree with it. So they wrote it up, and then it didn't go nowhere. So I didn't hear anything else of it.
So, Mr. Gray, before we kind of stop, I just want to make sure that we're still talking on the same level here. You're telling me that you did not commit this offense. After taking the class, after realizing that you're not supposed to be going to strip clubs or watching porno and all this other business, you're saying you didn't do anything inappropriate with your stepdaughter?
I don't believe I did, sir. I don't think I did anything inappropriate.
Well, were you on alcohol or drugs?
No, sir.
How would you not know that you did or you didn't? Do you have any sort of mental issues? Do you take any kind of medication?
Oh, they were trying to prescribe for me some mental issues. They said that I'm schizophrenic. But
Well, who is that? Who said that?
the medical staff here said
Have
that
you taken any kind of medication?
no, sir, I have not.
Have you been prescribed any kind of medication?
They hadn't prescribed the medicine for me. They just diagnosed me with schizophrenia.
And when was that?
That was last year. I believe at Hunt's is when they diagnosed me with it.
But they didn't prescribe any medication or give you any sort of treatment?
They had suggested that I take some, but because I hadn't had any episodes, they didn't enforce it.
What do you mean they didn't enforce it? They gave it to you, but you didn't take it?
No, sir, they didn't. They hadn't just prescribed it to me. They had said, they gave me the option to take it or not, and I declined from taking any medication because I'm already on medication for diabetes and blood pressure, and I didn't want to be on any other type of medication.
Mr. Gray, there's nothing you can do about this, but there is opposition to your being paroled. Is there anything you'd like to say to those people who oppose your parole?
Yes, I've suffered. I'm suffering now. I've suffered for 11 years. I mean, I don't know how much more y'all want from me. How much more you want? You want me to die?
Mr. Rayburn, I understand you may very well have some mental issues that you're dealing with. And this hearing is, of course, about you. But there's a victim involved in this case. And I'm concerned about that as well. You don't seem to be concerned about the victim in this case at all. It's all about you.
I was told that I couldn't, when I was going through my proceedings in court, after I bonded out, they said you cannot have any contact.
I hear that. I hear you saying that. But I'm asking you now, what would you say to the people who opposed you? And your comment was, I have suffered enough. What about the other people that have suffered?
If I caused any suffering, I deeply am sorry and I apologize.
But you don't think you've caused any suffering?
I have caused suffering. I mean, around the board. Yes, I have.
Warden, could you give us any information on Mr. Gray?
He's only been at Rayburn for right at a year. As you mentioned, he doesn't have a lot of write-ups, but I believe he could benefit from probably some more treatment and sex offender.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Jones, are there any questions?
I don't have any, no questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. I think, and I can't see him on my screen, I think we have Nathaniel Gray with us. Can we hear from Mr. Nathaniel Gray? I'm going to ask staff, is he still with us on the phone?
Ms. Renanza, we're trying to get in contact with him. He's not connecting to audio.
Okay, well, we'll just move on until you make that connection. Ms. Parker, we'd like to hear from you, ma'am.
Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Verlika Parker, and I'm the victim in this case. And I would like to say that I am not comfortable with Anthony's getting out. I don't feel as though Anthony has done anything to heal himself or done anything to make me believe that, he has changed. I feel as though Anthony just feel as though I feel as though that Anthony hasn't taken any initiative to say he's sorry or took any accountability for his actions. I feel as though I'm the only one. I'm getting blamed for something that he has done. I do not want Anthony to be paroled. I'm not comfortable with Anthony being paroled. With me being a victim, I think Anthony should serve more time, his full time. I also think Anthony should do some classes or something to get rehabilitation. Or I don't just think I don't see no empathy, no sympathy, or nothing for me being a victim. It's all about him. And being the victim, I just don't think Anthony at this time should be released from custody.
Thank you. We do appreciate your input. Did
Thank you.
did we reach Mr. Gray yet? I suppose not. So could we hear from the DA's office, Ms. Porter?
Hi,
Good morning.
good morning. Sonia Cardia-Porter, I was the prosecutor on this case. I worked with Ms. Parker through the prosecution. The defendant was exposed to a significant amount of time. He was not sentenced to the maximum. I think he should serve every single day that he was sentenced. The benefit was that he wasn't given the maximum. I will say that even hearing the victim talk today, the impact that it's had on her life, this case even had an impact on me. I don't drive by a library, look at it as I did before this case. I know that the victim bears the burden of the actions of the defendant, and he has taken no responsibility even today. So I think some more time, the amount of time that he was sentenced, would be great benefit to him and society.
Thank you. We appreciate the input from the DA's office. Thank you so much.
Ms. Renata,
Yes.
we have him through the headquarters microphone.
Okay, great. Mr. Nathaniel Gray, good morning.
Good morning.
We'd like to hear from you. What would you like to tell us about your father?
Well, I mean, I've never known my father to be a bad man in any type of way. And I really like for him to come home. He has a lot of family that misses him. And, he's not only my father, he's my best friend. You can check our call out. Like, I talk to him regularly. I wish I could talk to him more, but I mean, with all this corona and everything going on, times are hard, so I can't talk to him as much as I would like to, but I would really love to have him here with me. I missed he missed a lot of things in my life, a lot of important things that, he went away right when I was becoming a man. So it's a lot of things that I wish he was here to help me with still to this day. I have children and stuff I could use as advice to, sons, and I would like to raise them how he raised me. I really want him home. I mean, if there's anything I can do, I'll pay for treatment out of pocket. Whatever. If there's anything I can do, I'm willing to do it.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you spending some time with us this morning and sharing those remarks. Mr. Anthony Gray, is there anything you'd like to say to us before we reach a parole decision?
I'm trying to get my life together. If I just don't know. I'm trying to do right. I'm trying to get my life together and get back to my family.
All right, sir. Thank you. Is the panel prepared to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mirabella?
Mr. Gray, I was not sure how I was going to vote today after reading your file and reading through everything. You've done fairly well while you've been in prison. You have no write-ups to speak of. And under our system of law, even though you have been convicted by a jury, you have every right to claim your innocence. And I accept that. That does come with consequences because the jury has, in fact, found you guilty of aggravated incest. You have not taken, in my opinion, sufficient sex offender treatment. Perhaps not necessarily your own fault, but you haven't done it. In listening to the warden, hopefully we might be able to get you some programs that you would make you available next time, potentially for parole. You seem to maybe have some emotional issues that might need to be treated. There was a point in time during our discussion when I asked you, what do you say to the victim? Did you do anything wrong here? You hesitated for a long time. I know it's very difficult to admit and concede that you've committed this particular crime. If you haven't done it in your mind, well, stick to your guns. But if you have, one of the ways of healing and moving forward is to concede the fact that you've done it. Otherwise, you'll never be able to move on. My vote today is to deny with the recommendation that you take sex offender treatment and that you listen to what those things happen and you come to grips with who you are internally and admit to yourself whether you actually did this or not. That would be my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. Gray, I agree with Mr. Marabella. I've watched you, I've listened to you in this interview this morning. You're close to admitting you're wrong, but you just can't come to grips to saying it. Sex offender classes and come to grips with it. And I can only imagine this got to be something real hard for you to, through your actions and everything, it's there. You just got to come to grips with it. But good luck to you. And my vote today would be to deny also.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Gray, I do concur with my colleagues. My vote today also is to deny based on the opposition that's been expressed here this morning and the need for additional programming. Good luck to you, sir.